Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji, Vishwanath Prabhuji, for leading the chanting. Start with Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashat Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Okay, so let's continue with our Vandanam prayers from Vajagovindam Stotram by Shripadadi Shankaracharya, verses 11 to 20. Anybody would like to sing today? Okay, let's continue then. I'll sing and then we'll read the translations. Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Samprapte Sannihite Kale Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrin Karane Ma Kurudhana Jana Yavana Garvam Harati Nimeshat Kalah Sarvam Maya Mayamidam अखिलं हेत्वा ब्रह्मपदं त्वं प्रविश विदित्वा दीनयामिन्यौ सायं प्रातः शिशिरवासन्तौ पुनरायातः कालः क्रीडति गच्छतयायुः तदपि न मुञ्चत् याशावायुः द्वादशमञ्जरी काभिरशेषः कथितो वैयाकरणशेषः उपदेशो भूद्विद्यानिपूर्णैः श्रीमच्छङ्करभगवत्चरणैः काते कान्ता धनगतचिन्ता वातुलकिं तव नास्ति नियन्ता श्रीजगति सज्जनसंगतिरैका भवति भवर्णा वतरणिनौका जटिलो मुण्डी लुञ्चितकेशः कासा यां वरबाहुकृतवेषः पश्यन्नपि च न पश्यति मूढः उदरनिमित्तं बहुकृतवेषः अङ्गं गलितं फलितं मुण्डं दशनविहीनं जातं तुण्डम् वृद्धो याति गृहीत्वा दण्डं तदपि न मुञ्चत् याशापिण्डम् अग्रे वह्नि पृष्ठे भानुः रात्रौ चुबुका समर्पितजानुः करतलभिक्षा स्तरुतलवासः तदपि न मुञ्चत् याशापाशः कुरुते गङ्गा सागरगमनं व्रतपरिपालनमथवा दानं ज्ञानविहीनः सर्वमतेन मुक्तिं न भज हरे कृष्ण Okay. Let's try. For some reason, I think it's a Wi-Fi issue. Okay. कुरुते गङ्गा सागरगमनं व्रतपरिपालनमथवा दानं ज्ञानविहीनः सर्वमतेन मुक्तिं न भजति जन्मशतेन सुरमन्दिरतरुमूलनिवासः शय्याभूतलमजिनं वासः सर्वपरिग्रह भोगत्यागः कस्य सुखं न करोति विरागः योगरतो वा भोगरतातो वा सङ्गरतो वा सङ्गविहीनः यस्य ब्रह्मणि Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Okay, turning off my Wi-Fi. Okay, let's read the translations. Anybody would like to read the translations?
Hare Krishna, I can read.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Do not boast of wealth, friends, and youth. Each one of these are destroyed within a minute. Free yourself from the illusion of the world of Maya and attain the timeless truth. Daylight and darkness, dusk and dawn, winter and springtime come and go. Time plays and life ebbs away, but the storm of desire never leaves. This bouquet of 12 verses was imparted to grammarian by all-knowing Shankara, adorned as Bhagavad Pad. O madman, why this engrossment in thoughts of wealth? There is no one to guide you. There is only one thing in three worlds that can save you from the ocean of samsara. Get into the boat of satsanga, knowledge of truth, quickly. There are many who go with mated locks, many who have clean shaven heads, many whose hairs have been plucked out. Some are clothed in saffron, yet others in various colors, all just for a livelihood. Seeing truth revealed before them, still the foolish ones see it not. Strength has left the old body's men. His head has become bald, his gums toothless, and leaning on crutches. Even then, the attachment is strong, and he clings firmly to fruitless hope. Behold, there lies the man who sits warming up his body with the fire in front and sun at the back. At night, he curls up the body to keep out of the cold. He eats his beggar's food from the bowl of his hand and sleeps beneath the tree. Still in his heart, he is a wretched puppet at the hands of passions. One may go to the Ganga, observe fasts, and give away riches in charity, yet devoid of Gyan, nothing can give mukti even at the end of hundred's birth. Take your residence in a temple or below a tree where the deerskin for the dress, sleep with Mother Earth as your bed, give up all attachment and renounce all comforts. Blessed with such vairagya, could any fail to be content? One may take delight in yoga or bhoga, may have attachment or detachment, but only he whose mind steadily delights in Brahman enjoys bliss, no one else. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Okay, let's continue Prabhupada Lilamrit. Prabhupada has arrived back in San Francisco and then from there to actually gone to Montreal. So before we continue chapter 29, I noticed that we have a foreword for this last set of chapters from volume 1, from chapter 29 to 36. So let's read this foreword and then we'll continue. Foreword to the first printing of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrit. Okay. Though I have been a student of the Krishna devotional traditions in India for 15 years, in the late 60s, I was influenced by the then common notion among academicians, not to mention the general public, that the movement began by Bhaktivedanta Swami was simply another watered down product of an Indian guru's attempt to make Hindu teachings attractive to Western youth. The anti cult campaigns of the mid 70s highlighted ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, as one of the spurious cults. However, my research into the validity of such attitudes led me to conclude that the Krishna movement in America was more authentically Indian than I had first imagined. When the opportunity presented itself in 1980 for me to live in Krishna temples in California for 3 weeks, I began an intensive study of ISKCON that has since taken me to 14 temples throughout America and India. Through living in the temples and speaking at length with ISKCON leaders and devotees, I have come to regard many members of the movement as good friends and their guru Bhaktivedanta Swami as a man worthy of the attention and acclaim this biographical series affords. In this volume of Bhaktivedanta Swami's biography, one of the central lessons taught the astute reader is the complexity and depth of the guru disciple relationship. Much of the criticism from parents and anti cult group centers on the authoritarian demand of cult leaders for absolute submission from their followers. It is assumed that the leader has personal motives, example, power or monetary gain, that drive him to control others, while the surrendered disciples are manipulated in an unthinking state by the capricious whim of the spiritual master. In this volume of the life of Bhaktivedanta Swami, we see the foolishness of such an analysis. What springs from page after page is the willing devotion of young men and women to a man whom they admire for his deep faith and humility, not his autocratic or forceful demands. Early in ISKCON's life in America, the very fabric of this fledgling institution was threatened by schismatic teachings of newly ordained ascetics on the relative place of the Guru in the life of faith and in the institution. Bhaktivedanta Swami had to state forcefully the Indian tradition that the Guru's position is absolute, that of the eternal spiritual father, not simply one of convenience to be overshadowed by time. Yet, we can see why some of the young devotees were confused as Bhaktivedanta Swami prostrated himself before the images of Krishna and of his Guru in the line of spiritual teachers before him. Such, however, is the character of parampara or Guru succession. One's Guru is the only channel through which one's devotion is transmitted faithfully to God, and such is also the case for one's Guru, though some, like Bhaktivedanta Swami, seem also to have direct access as well. Thus, to a mother who exclaims, "You know, these boys actually worship you," Bhaktivedanta Swami responds, "Yes, that is our system. I am also worshipping my Guru Maharaj." This volume of Bhaktivedanta Swami's biography reveals the religious dimensions of the Guru disciple relationship in the varied attempts this remarkable Vaishnava ascetic made to nurture the deepening faith of his new American children in a God and a spiritual tradition foreign to their native soil. From loosely performed rituals to standardized pujas, deity worship, done according to classic Bengali texts, we see the old master encourage greater attention to the details of worship. From spontaneous but uninformed attempts to celebrate their guru's birthday to formal Vyas pujas set in traditional Bengali songs and prayer, Bhaktivedanta Swami's disciples are led into old Indian traditions of honoring one's spiritual master as a part of the act of worshipping God. But what struck me as I read the pages that follow is the model of piety set by Bhaktivedanta Swami himself as he became deeply immersed in the praises of God while singing or chanting or dancing. It becomes quite clear that the lesson of the master is not merely what he says, but what he does. And it is also clear that the followers of Bhaktivedanta Swami struggled, not always successfully, to match up to the high standard of living and devotion the mature Bhaktivedanta Swami set. The reader will marvel at the persistence, ingenuity, and faithfulness to Bhaktivedanta Swami's vision, his disciples, evidence in their attempt to spread Krishna consciousness to every town and village. From the married couples who pioneered the movement in England and accomplished with the aid of the Beatles, Harrison and Lennon, what renowned sages from India before them could not, to the disciples who endured the worst that India's climate and cuisine could produce, to work long days and nights bringing faith in Krishna back to India's own people, the contagious devotion of the master lives on in his spiritual children. Thus, the success of ISKCON in these formative years, 1969 to 1971, can be understood only when both partners in the guru-disciple relationship are given due attention. Nonetheless, it is Bhaktivedanta Swami, with his deep faith, energetic preaching, and persistent ideals, who forms the nucleus of the fledgling community of faith we observe in the early years of ISKCON. What begins to happen before the careful reader's eyes in this volume is the institutionalization or routinization of ISKCON's dress, ritual behavior, and administrative structure. With the formation of the Governing Body Commission (GBC) to run the practical affairs of the institution, book publication, temple economics, etc., Bhaktivedanta Swami accomplished something his own master had envisioned but had not accomplished before his death, namely, to provide an administrative structure that could hold together disparate temples in varied locations with their separate leaderships. It is clear after Bhaktivedanta Swami's death in 1977 that the GBC has enabled ISKCON to weather storms from within, including the defection of one of Bhaktivedanta Swami's 11 appointed successors, and from without. Example, the tax and legal challenges to ISKCON's religious status in California that would have been impossible without central leadership. We see in this volume the beginnings of that leadership core and the freedom from administrative detail the GBC afforded Bhaktivedanta Swami. Having interviewed Satsvarupa Das Goswami and visited a farm under his management, I have seen the same devotion expressed for him by his disciples that he expresses here for Bhaktivedanta Swami. That is not surprising when one realizes that even with effective institutional structures like the GBC in place, communities of faith remain vital only so long as there are living models to give expression to ideals and beliefs that can otherwise seem quite remote. Critics of ISKCON, who see only the outward trappings of surrender to the Guru, miss the humility before God and Guru that is demanded for each Guru as well. This volume is a success not because of some academic standard of objectivity, which few biographers meet in any case, but because of the skillful blend of oral history, documented reminiscences, and transparent admiration, all of which bring Bhaktivedanta Swami to life for the reader as a real and exceptional person. We not only sense but observe that it is complete devotion to God through the person of one spiritual master that animated ISKCON in its early years and continues to do so now, as evidenced by the author himself. Thus, this book reads like a personal yet precise diary relating the formative years of ISKCON and its founder teacher. And just as in reading a diary, we learn as much from reading between the lines as we do from the events and persons described. This is a fascinating chronicle I urge you to read. Dr. Larry D. Shin, Danforth Professor of Religion, Oberlin College, Oberlin, Ohio. Okay, so let's continue. Prabhupada is now speaking to his disciples in Montreal, all the couples who have come from San Francisco to take the movement forward in London. All right, three married couples, Mukunda and Janaki, Sham Sundar and Malati, with their infant daughter Saraswati, and Gurudas and Yamuna, arrived in Montreal, eager to travel to London. These three couples had begun the temple in San Francisco, where they had had close association with Srila Prabhupada. They had helped Prabhupada introduce Kirtan, Prashadam, and Rath Yatra among the hippies of Haight Ashbury. Now they were eager to help him introduce Krishna consciousness in London. Prabhupada asked the three couples to remain with him in Montreal for a week or two so that he could train them to perform Kirtan expertly. Chanting Hare Krishna was not a theatrical performance, but an act of devotion, properly conducted only by pure devotees, not by professional musicians. Yet, if Prabhupada's disciples became proficient in their singing, Londoners would better appreciate Krishna consciousness. The thought of these devotees preaching in England made Prabhupada ecstatic. With their kirtan, they would become more popular than the yogis. With their gymnastics and impersonal meditation. As the London program became a tangible fact, Prabhupada began to reveal more plans. Prabhupada already seemed to have hundreds of detailed plans for implementing Krishna consciousness around the world. He only needed willing helpers. In the daily kirtan rehearsals, Prabhupada taught the devotees to chant Hare Krishna and other devotional songs, beginning with a slow tempo and building gradually. He would regularly interrupt and have them begin again. Listening carefully as Yamuna led the chanting, Prabhupada would stop her at times to correct her Sanskrit pronunciation. After 2 weeks in Montreal, the London party came together for a final meeting with Prabhupada. He was sending them to start a center in London to fulfill his spiritual master's dream. The sannyasis Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had sent to London, Prabhupada told them, had lectured in a few places, posed for photos with lords and ladies, and then returned to India. But Prabhupada wanted his disciples to go out boldly, chant the holy name, and attract others to chant. Lord Chaitanya had personally used this method while touring South India. Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that whoever saw Lord Chaitanya became ecstatic in love of God. Then that ecstatic person would chant the holy name and ask others to chant. And when they saw that person, they too would become ecstatic. Thus, the waves of ecstatic love of Krishna would increase. Prabhupada predicted that when the devotees chanted Hare Krishna, the people of London would hear the mantra, become devotees, and then enlighten others. Krishna consciousness would grow. The only requirement was that the chanting be done purely, without any material motivation. Prabhupada's enthusiasm was contagious, and as he spoke, he filled his disciples with the same contagious enthusiasm. When Mukunda asked Prabhupada if he had any specific instructions, Prabhupada replied with a story. In his youth, he had once seen a movie of Charlie Chaplin. The setting was a formal ball held outdoors and off from the main dance arena were lanes with benches where couples sat. Some mischievous boys had plastered glue on one of the benches, and a young man and his girlfriend came and sat down. When the young man got up, Prabhupada laughed as he told the story. His tails tore up the middle. Prabhupada told how the couple had returned to dance, unaware of what had happened, but now they drew stares from the other dancers. Wondering why he was suddenly attracting so much attention, the young man went into the dressing room and saw in the mirror his ripped coat tails. Deliberately, he then tore his coat all the way up to the collar, returned to his partner, and began dancing exuberantly. Then another man joined, ripping his own coattails and dancing with his partner, as if to compete with the first couple. One by one, the other dancers followed, ripping their coattails and dancing with abandon. By the conclusion of the story, the devotees in Prabhupada's room were all laughing uproariously. But finally, their laughter subsided and the meeting ended. Not until the devotees were already at the airport did Mukunda, talking with Shyam Sundara, begin to appreciate and marvel at how expertly Prabhupada had answered his question. By their bold, enthusiastic, confident preaching, they would attract people. Not everyone would immediately join in the dancing, as had the people in the Charlie Chaplin film. The devotees might even be considered crazy at first, but they would be offering Krishna consciousness, the highest and rarest gift, and intelligent people would gradually appreciate this, even if at first they scoffed. By Srila Prabhupada's order, his London bound disciples holding Kirtan in public would present a profile quite different from the reserved profile of his sannyasi godbrothers. His godbrothers had imitated the British ways, but Prabhupada wanted the British to imitate the Vaishnavas. To appear in the streets of London with shaven heads and dhotis would require boldness, but it would be exciting to chant, carrying out the order of Lord Chaitanya, and the people would follow gradually, but definitely. It was the will of Lord Chaitanya. Srila Prabhupada's visit to Montreal took place early in the summer of 1968, 6 months after his return to America. In India, from July to December of 1967, he had recovered his health, and on December 14th, he had returned to San Francisco. After a few weeks, he had gone to Los Angeles, where a small group of disciples had opened a storefront temple in a middle class black and Hispanic neighborhood. The storefront was bare and the location secluded. Prabhupada had stayed there 2 months, delivering lectures, holding kirtans, and giving strength and inspiration to his disciples. Although a buzzing in his head had made working difficult, he had found the warm climate and sunshine agreeable and had continued to translate Srimad Bhagavatam, dictating tapes, and sending them to Boston for typing. A reporter from Life had come to Srila Prabhupada's apartment and interviewed him for an upcoming Life feature, The Year of the Guru. When the story had appeared, it had mixed Srila Prabhupada and his movement with the coverage of other gurus. Although the article had carried a large color photo of Srila Prabhupada and favorably described the reporter's visit to the New York ISKCON Center, Prabhupada had said that being grouped with gurus who taught concoctions of yoga and meditation was not good. In May, a few months after leaving Los Angeles, Prabhupada had paid his first visit to his ISKCON center in Boston. There also, he had found a few disciples based in a small storefront. He had lectured at many of the local universities, including Harvard and MIT. At MIT, addressing a gathering of students and faculty, he had challenged, where in this university is there a department to teach scientifically the difference between a living body and a dead body? The most fundamental science, the science of the living soul, was not being taught. After Boston, Srila Prabhupada had come to Montreal. And after 3 months in Montreal, Prabhupada flew to Seattle, where he stayed for 1 month. Then he briefly visited Santa Fe. New Mexico, where the ISKCON center was a tiny, isolated storefront. Prabhupada's reasons for traveling from center to center were to train and convince each disciple and to speak with the newcomers. Many young people came to hear, but Prabhupada found the majority already ruined by illicit sex and drugs. They were rich men's sons, but they had become hippies, wandering the streets. By Krishna's grace, now some of them were being saved. Even while recuperating in India, Prabhupada had always thought of returning to America to continue his movement. The Indians had seemed interested only in sense gratification, like that of the Americans. But many American youths, disillusioned with their father's wealth, were not going to the skyscrapers or to their father's businesses. As Prabhupada had seen from his stay in New York City and San Francisco, thousands of youths were seeking an alternative to materialism. Frustrated, they were ripe for spiritual knowledge. The devotees, still neophytes, knew nothing of spiritual life and, in most cases, very little of material life. But because they were sincerely taking to Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada was confident that their shortcomings would not prevent their spiritual progress. Although naturally beautiful, these Western youths were now dirty and morose. Their beauty had become covered, but the chanting of Hare Krishna was reviving them. Prabhupada said, just as the monsoon revives the land of Vrindavan, making it fresh and verdant, and as the Vrindavan peacocks sometimes dance jubilantly, so the devotees, having shed their material bonds, were now ecstatically dancing and chanting the holy names. When a reporter asked Prabhupada if his disciples were hippies, Prabhupada replied, no, we are not hippies, we are happies. Hare Krishna. From hippies to happy. Yes, here, like Prabhupada is saying, peacocks dance jubilantly. Like um, Prabhuji was saying the other day, Lalita Prasad Prabhu, devotees, we feel jubilant, right, when we meet each other. And yes, Prabhupada is saying here, like these early disciples are, even though they had shortcomings, they had been through sinful life, but they were not at least offenders, right? So in Sanskrit, they say one is a papi and other is an aparadhi. So, like we say, Vaishnava aparad, we should not commit aparad, offenses, but we all have committed, some. There's nobody in the world who can say that they have never committed any sin, right? If we reflect back in our lives, I'm sure many of us have done many things which we may regret now. Um, but those sins can be washed away as monsoon washes away the dirt, and that can be done by the process of chanting the holy names in this age, as Lord Chaitanya has said, and that is easily done, and it happens gradually with the three things that Rupa Goswami says, right? Enthusiasm, determination, and patience. We have to have all of those. And when we continue on the process of bhakti, then the cleansing starts. Even if we chant offensively in the beginning, because there are three stages of chanting, right? Offensive chanting, the stage of clearing, and then finally the pure name. Um, so yeah, that can be cleansed. The paps, the sins can be cleansed. But if one uh, voluntarily commits offenses repeatedly again and again, then that is not pardonable. And yeah, but again, Prabhupada says that if somebody is sincere, if he understands or realizes that mistake and makes an honest attempt to stop making offenses, then yes, then again progress is guaranteed, spiritual advancement is guaranteed. So that should be our focus, to avoid aparads, Vaishnava aparad, the 10 offenses to the holy name. Okay, but yeah, wonderful reading again. Prabhupada is traveling from center to center, galvanizing, energizing his disciples, and helping them continue the uh, preaching movement just as he wanted. That was his vision when he came to America. He's so happy to see all these centers flourishing by the presence of sincere devotees. Like he said, one sincere devotee is all that it needs to carry on the movement. Okay, any other thoughts, comments from today's reading?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yes.
I was just reflecting back on Prabhupada's idea of dressing up differently to attract, the people in general, and how he was recollecting the Charlie Chaplin's movie he has seen long, long ago. So that was quite a very a smart and out of the box idea by Prabhupada, and his all the skills he has. We can see like another something that he was suggesting his disciples to do while they were going to preach in London, and we will see how they're just dressing up differently was attracting, dressing up as Vaishnavas was attracting so many people just by seeing them dressed in simple clothes, shaven heads. So I was just reflecting on the importance of Vaishnav dressing. Sometimes we think, oh, it is a lot of effort to dress, in Vaishnav attire, dhoti, kurta, saris. But there is something really important, I think, related to this because consciously or subconsciously, the attire, the way you dress up, reflects your mind, your the energy you're carrying, and also, how other people are looking at you. So it is very, very important, I think, Vaishnava attire. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, yeah. Attire is very, very important, and eventually that is the attire we have in spiritual world. So it's better to practice it here. But yeah, the important thing is again like how Prabhupada uses everything in Krishna's service, right? So sometimes you may be wondering, why we are, why um, some of the Maharajas are doing certain things, right? Like anything and everything, like even just taking up in journey, even just taking japa walks outside. Recently, I was seeing like again Vaishnav Maharaj who was here. He was taking a boat ride and a helicopter ride, right? All of these, but a true devotee, a pure Vaishnava, uses everything in his preaching, right? So when Prabhupada used to travel, like we were reading a couple of days ago, when he was traveling in the airplane, he would just be chanting in his beads. Sometimes he would ask his devotees to know what's going on around the world. Many of our current Maharajas, disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they also sometimes read newspapers, and but again, the purpose is not to absorb their consciousness in reading newspaper just as a materialistic person does, but to see what's going on in the world and how to use that in their preaching. So I was also very kind of, it was funny anecdote, but we see how Prabhupada is, maybe he would have seen that movie. I remember watching this particular episode of Charlie Chaplin also, where he sits and then his pants get torn from the back. But yeah, how he used that, in such a nice way in this particular situation, again shows the principle of Yukta Vairagya, how he was using anything and everything in Krishna's service, right? So um, others may just have a laugh, but Prabhupada again was building the confidence, building the inspiration in his disciples to go out and preach boldly, not to be, people may laugh, initially, but the same people who laugh when they realize the purity of your message, then they will come out and they will join you, those who are honest and sincere. So yeah, with such simple things, he was just boosting the confidence, boosting the the inner spiritual potency of his disciples. Hare Krishna. Thank you. All right. Any other comments? पवन प्रभु जी, कुछ बोलना चाहेंगे?
You covered it all, Prabhuji. And Meenakshi Mataji said it very nicely. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your chanting again. Thank you for your association. Thank you, all the devotees, for your valuable association. So let's conclude with Vaishnava Pranam prayers. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantapati Vaishnavindi ki jai. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Lilamrit ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.